Good morning, you're watching A News. I'm Dilek Tuna. Here are the top stories for the hour. More countries recognise Palestine at the UN annual session. Russia is under pressure at the UN General Assembly over rising accusations of airspace violations. And Jimmy Kimmel's late night show returns back on air after a week of protests. Palestine remains at the centre of global attention. As the United Nations General Assembly opened yesterday, world leaders turned their focus to the issue of Palestinian statehood. In a significant move, France, Belgium, Luxembourg, Andorra, Monaco and Malta have officially recognised the state of Palestine.
The leaders of 6 countries have moved to recognise Palestinian statehood at a high-level summit ahead of the annual United Nations General Assembly meeting in New York. Alongside France, which co-convened the meeting with Saudi Arabia on Monday in New York, Andorra, Belgium, Luxembourg, Malta and Monaco said they were recognising a Palestinian state, defying the US and Israel.
Le temps est venu. C'est pourquoi
time has come. This is why, loyal to my country's historic commitment to the Middle East, for peace among Israeli people and Palestinian people, I declare that France recognizes today the state of Palestine.
Que la France reconnaît aujourd'hui l'État de Palestine.
Out a strong political and diplomatic signal to the world today by joining the group of countries that announces the recognition of the State of Palestine in the margin of this high-level week of the United Nations General Assembly.
Today we wish to reaffirm our unwavering support to Israel's existence, and we also wish to recognise Palestine as a state under international law.
As of today, Luxembourg formally recognizes the state of Palestine.
Leaders from Australia, Canada, Portugal and the United Kingdom had formally made the move to recognise Palestine a day earlier and also spoke at Monday's meeting. With more than 80% of the international community now recognising the state of Palestine, diplomatic pressure has ramped up on Israel. However, recognising Palestinian statehood is a milestone that could boost Palestinian morale, but unlikely to change much on the ground. And Israel said such moves will undermine the prospects of a peaceful end to the conflict.
Tens of thousands of people across Italy protested on Monday, closing schools, blocking roads and halting port activity in a protest against Israel's offensive in Gaza. In Milan, clashes broke out between protesters and police. Authorities reported there were more than 10 arrests and dozens of injured officers. Similar disruptions occurred in Naples and Bologna, while dock workers in Genoa, Livorno, Trieste and Venice blocked ports to protest against arms transfers to Israel. The demonstrations come as the Italian government rejects calls to recognise Palestinian statehood, unlike several other Western countries that backed the move at the UN on Monday. Meanwhile, at a sidelines meeting at the UN General Assembly in New York, Syrian President al-Sharaa vowed that his country will never be split into factions. It's the first time in nearly 6 decades a Syrian leader has attended the UN General Assembly and is expected to deliver his first address there on Tuesday. On Monday, he touched on several key issues, from urging the United States to lift sanctions to rejecting any division of Syria and calling for inclusive agreements among all factions. Sharaa called on all sides to seize the chance for peace and unity, warning that division would endanger the region.
We have made it clear that we will never accept the division of Syria in factions, because this would lead to trouble and risk against neighbouring countries such as Iraq. Therefore, we have to reach peaceful solutions. We have to endorse the document related to the implementation of the convention or the agreement of all the factions, including those supported by Turkey and those supported by Iran. We have to seize the opportunity in order to reorganize Syria, because this will benefit everybody, all factions, including the Kurds.
US President Donald Trump is set to meet with leaders and officials from several Muslim-majority nations on Tuesday. The White House said the talks will include representatives from Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Egypt, Jordan, Turkey, Indonesia and Pakistan. It's reported that they'll be discussing the ongoing situation in Gaza on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. Axios reports that Trump will outline a peace plan for the Strip, including Israel's withdrawal and post-war governance without Hamas. The US also seeks Arab and Muslim support for troops and funding to aid the transition and reconstruction. Earlier, we spoke with analyst and former diplomat Melih Demirtas in Ankara. He told A News that efforts from the Syrian government to engage with the international community could mark the start of dialogue and stability for Syria.
The al-Sharaa and his interim government had the power now in Syria. And after that date, we have seen slowly the relations also between Syria and the other world countries. First of all, maybe United States, and also, of course, European Union countries. They had start to have important, maybe positive relations. Also, Turkey and Azerbaijan has, in this point, a very maybe constructive and diplomatic role to maybe integrate the new Syria to this new world order. And yes, Mr. Sharaa, important members of his cabinet, I think like 30-40 members of his cabinet now in New York, in the United States, and they really have some hopes to make some dialogue and maybe a meeting with Mr. Trump. And maybe they really hope to maybe combine these new terms with some peaceful and stable atmosphere for the new country, for Syria.
Tensions between NATO and Russia are escalating, with Western countries warning Moscow that future airspace violations will be met with force. At the United Nations Security Council, they accused Russia of deliberate provocations, while Moscow dismissed the claims as fabricated.
NATO allies have accused Russia of repeated violations of alliance airspace at an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council on Monday, warning that such incidents risk a direct confrontation. Estonia, Poland and Romania reported incursions in recent weeks, including Russian fighter jets entering Estonian skies for 12 minutes, drones shot down over Poland and a drone detected in Romania. Western officials said the pattern suggested Moscow was probing NATO's readiness. Russia, however, rejected the claims as baseless hysteria. Estonia presented radar evidence to the Council, insisting that 3 armed Russian jets penetrated 10 kilometers into Estonian territory.
And let me show you the screenshot from our most modern radar screenshot. So you can see here as well, the red line is a violation of Estonian territory and sovereignty. You can see it very clearly. This is a fact.
Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski issued a blunt warning.
I have only one request to the Russian government. If another missile or aircraft enters our space without permission, deliberately or by mistake, and gets shot down and the wreckage falls on NATO territory, please don't come here to whine about it. You have been warned.
The European Union's foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, said the repeated airspace breaches could not be dismissed as accidental. She argued that the pattern showed Moscow was deliberately testing Europe's borders and undermining regional security. Russia denied any wrongdoing, insisting that the planes stayed over international waters.
Thus, our former European partners, if you want to get hysterical, to ferment and to continue to levy baseless accusations, go right ahead. But do that without our participation. We do not intend to participate in this theatre of absurdity.
With NATO consultations scheduled for Tuesday, the latest confrontations underline growing fears that Moscow's war in Ukraine could spill further across Europe's borders.
Flights across Scandinavia were thrown into chaos overnight after drone sightings forced the closure of Copenhagen and Oslo airports. Copenhagen Airport, the busiest in the Nordic region, was closed for nearly 4 hours on Monday after large drones were spotted nearby. Around 50 flights were diverted. In Oslo, airspace was shut for more than 3 hours from midnight after a drone observation before reopening early Tuesday. Police in Denmark and Norway are investigating whether the incidents are linked. Both airports warn passengers to expect delays and cancellations. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has met with US Special Presidential Envoy for Ukraine, Keith Kellogg. Zelensky said their meeting focused on developing cooperation between Ukraine and the United States, including agreements on drones, on the procurement of American weapons that Ukraine has proposed to Washington. He also briefed Kellogg on the counter-offensive operation near Dnipropetrovsk and Pokrovsk. Jimmy Kimmel's Late Night Show will return to ABC on Tuesday, just under a week after it was pulled from the air. Disney, which owns the network, confirmed the decision on Monday. It says production had been halted to prevent further tensions following remarks Kimmel made about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. The company admitted some of his comments were ill-timed and insensitive, but after further discussions with the host, it decided the program could now resume. US President Donald Trump has announced that childhood vaccines and the painkiller Tylenol, often used by pregnant women and children, may be linked to autism. Speaking at the White House on Monday, Trump repeatedly advised parents and expectant mothers against using the medication. His administration also floated the idea of using leucovorin, a form of folic acid, as a treatment for autism symptoms. But medical experts strongly reject his comments. Dr. Audrey Drumbach, an autism specialist, said there is strong evidence the drug is safe.
I would say we have strong evidence that acetaminophen is not causing autism. It's certainly not the cause of autism. The things that were said at that press conference aren't based in fact. And so pediatricians are going to be, they're going to feel like they're on the defensive, having to defend practice that is based on solid evidence and we have decades of experience with.
In the Philippines, Super Typhoon Ragasa left devastation and closures as it hit the area on Monday. Officials now say it's moving towards Hong Kong, where residents are bracing themselves against strong winds of more than 200 kilometres per hour.
The Philippines continues to face the devastating aftermath of Super Typhoon Ragasa, which triggered heavy rains and led to closures across large parts of the country on Monday. Packing maximum sustained winds of 215 kilometres per hour and gusts of up to 295 kilometres an hour. The typhoon prompted the evacuation of residents from their homes in the northern region. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. ordered the Philippines Disaster Response Agency to go on full alert and mobilise all government agencies. Rescue personnel cleared mud and debris after a landslide caused by the heavy rain. Meanwhile, the typhoon has since begun edging closer to the coast of southern Guangdong province in China, according to the Hong Kong Observatory. In response, schools and businesses have been shut down, while most passenger flights from the city's airport are to be suspended later in the day until early Thursday. Residents have expressed nervousness about the approaching storm as they do their best to prepare.
I taped windows in my place with cross pattern. We also prepared rice, noodles and vegetables for food. We are well prepared.
I bought a bit more than usual. I am not too nervous. It's too much to buy a lot. The whole wet market was like Lunar New Year yesterday. The vegetable and meat stalls were met with waves of people.
Authorities in the financial hub are set to raise the typhoon signal to 8, its third highest, which will prompt most businesses and transport services to shut down. About 700 flights have already been disrupted.
A new war of words is unfolding over Afghanistan's Bagram airbase, once the hub of American operations in the country. Our Afghanistan correspondent Tamim Bahis has more on this from Kabul.
US President Donald Trump told reporters that the United States is pressuring Afghanistan to hand back control of Bagram, insisting that it should happen immediately. He warned that if Kabul refuses, Washington would take decisive action. President Trump later doubled down online, posting a warning that unless Afghanistan returns the base to the US, there could be severe consequences. Afghanistan's authorities quickly issued a formal response. Their statement emphasized that the country's sovereignty and territorial integrity are non-negotiable, reminding Washington of commitments made in the Doha Agreement to avoid interference in Afghan internal affairs. The statement said it favors positive relations built on mutual interests, but argued that the US to pursue a realistic approach rather than repeating past mistakes. The Defense Ministry's Chief of Staff went further, rejecting any possibility of a deal over the base, stating a deal over even an inch of Afghanistan's soil is not possible. For many Afghans, Bagram symbolizes both years of foreign military presence and their struggle for independence. The latest standoff underscores how the airbase remains a deeply sensitive issue between Kabul and Washington. For now, Afghanistan's position is firm. Bagram is not on the table. This is Tamim Bahis in Kabul for A News.
Russia is weighing reforms to its migration system, including abolishing work patents and restricting the entry of migrants' families. With millions of foreign workers already in the country, these changes could have major consequences for both the labour market and social services. For more on that, we go to our Sevil Rajapova.
Russia is moving to reform its migration policy by scrapping work patents and tightening rules on family entry. The patent system introduced in 2010 to regulate foreign labor and generate revenue has become central to migration management. In 2024, it brought in about $1.36 billion. From May to January 2025 alone, revenues reached $693 million, 35% higher than the same period last year. Around 3 million foreign workers are currently employed under this system. At the opening of the State Duma's autumn session, President Vladimir Putin announced plans to eliminate patents. Parliamentary leader of LDPR, Leonid Slutsky, also called for migrant workers to come without families, citing strains on education, healthcare and social services. The Labour Ministry also proposed lowering quotas for foreign workers in sectors like construction and food services and banning them entirely in alcohol and tobacco retail. The aim is to reduce reliance on migrants and shift jobs to local workers. Uzbekistan remains the largest source of labor migrants in Russia, accounting for 23.3%, followed by Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. Analysts warn that eliminating patents and reducing quotas could hit both migrant communities and regional budgets hard. It is Sevil Rajapova reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, A News.
It's day 2 of the International Investment Forum here in Baku, bringing together global investors, government officials and business leaders under one roof. Our Nadia Jian is at the event with more.
It's day 2 of the Azerbaijan International Investment Forum in Baku, and if yesterday was anything to go by, today will be just as great. There's going to be double the amount of panel discussions, but this time looking at strategic investment and finance, medical excellence, industrial development and agriculture, plus a signing ceremony. There'll also be a special interview with Karabakh football manager Gurban Gobanov. Today promises to be jam-packed with innovative discussions and a sharing of ideas for future initiatives. I'll be here to bring you the latest updates. I'm Nadia Jani for A News.
Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev is in New York for the UN General Assembly. He has been meeting with top investing firms including Neuberger Berman, Brookfield Asset Management and Blackstone, interested in expanding cooperation with Azerbaijan. They discussed energy, economic growth and new opportunities for cooperation. The meetings reflect Azerbaijan's push to attract global investment and strengthen its international partnerships. Azerbaijan was also praised for its economic growth and its efforts to normalize ties with Armenia. Joining us from Lahore in Pakistan, energy and economy expert Osama Rizvi told us the first Azerbaijan International Investment Forum highlights the country's growing role as both an energy and transit hub. He said Azerbaijan is positioning itself not just for traditional investment, but also in renewables, AI and wider energy security.
I believe this is not only the first instance this year or the last year that Azerbaijan, Baku, has lent itself to the world, has opened itself to the world as an investment destination. You see, it has also served as a neutral ground for many mediations in the recent geopolitical conflicts. It is working closely with other countries like Turkey, like other neighboring countries, to become an energy hub, a transit hub. And I think this investment forum falls or connects neatly to this overarching theme, wherein Azerbaijan, or Central Asia as a whole, and I've said this before as well, lots of time, that it stands to play a very important role, not only in the traditional capital sense, but also renewables, AI, and overall energy security of the world.
Businessman and politician Bidzina Ivanishvili made headlines in Georgia by hosting the President of the United Arab Emirates. His visit resulted in a $6 billion investment deal set to make a significant contribution to the country's economic development.
Although Bidzina Ivanishvili no longer holds former political office, he is widely regarded as Georgia's most influential figure. His hosting of the President of the United Arab Emirates immediately drew significant public attention. Critics argued that the meeting underscored the concentration of power in a single individual. The government, by contrast, emphasized the economic importance of the visit. Officials announced a $6 billion investment agreement with the Emirati company EMAAR, covering major projects in tourism infrastructure, real estate, logistics and energy. The ruling party described the deal as the largest investment in Georgia's modern history, with the potential to create jobs, drive economic growth and strengthen the country's investment profile. The regional context is also noteworthy. Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed's visit to Tbilisi comes just days after his trip to Azerbaijan, highlighting the United Arab Emirates' growing interest in the South Caucasus as both a commercial and diplomatic hub. It's Nini Nikolaishvili reporting from Tbilisi, A News.
Kyrgyzstan is heading into what could be its toughest winter in terms of energy supply. The country's Energy Minister of Energy, Talaybek Ibraev, has warned of a significant electricity shortage and is urging the public to reduce consumption. Fariza Kalimirzina reports.
Kyrgyzstan is bracing for a critical winter in the energy sector. In an interview with the national news agency Kabar, Minister of Energy Talaybek Ibraev warned citizens about an electricity shortage and called for energy conservation. The volume of water in the Toktogol Reservoir, the main source of hydroelectric power, is 1.6 billion kilowatt hours lower than usual. This directly affects electricity generation, which will decrease by the same amount. One of the key reasons for the current shortage is the lack of investment in new hydropower plants over the past 30 years. While the construction of hydro, wind and solar power facilities has accelerated over the last 2 years, this is still not enough to meet the growing demand. And since 2020, Kyrgyzstan has seen rapid development in social, industrial and infrastructure projects, all of which continue to drive electricity consumption upward. Also, the population has exceeded 7 million people, and the economy is showing steady growth, leading to a sharp increase in electricity demand. Last year, electricity consumption in Kyrgyzstan reached 17.8 billion kilowatt hours. However, the country's hydropower and thermal power stations are not able to fully meet this demand. Looking ahead, Minister Ibrahim warned that the peak of the crisis is expected between 2025 and 2026. Electricity consumption in 2025 is forecasted to reach 18.9 billion kilowatt hours, increasing the pressure on the already strained energy system. To help close the immediate gap, Kyrgyzstan plans to import 3 million kilowatt hours of electricity from Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan and Russia. However, these imports are only a temporary solution. While imports will help in the short term, sustainable solutions require deeper changes. Minister Ibrahim sees the way out of this situation through urgent reforms, attracting investments for the construction of new generation capacities, and adopting a regime of reasonable energy conservation. He believes that the crisis can be overcome by 2028 through the expansion of generation capacity and the modernization of infrastructure. From Almaty, Kazakhstan, Fariza Kalimurzina, A News.
That's the news update from us in Baku this morning. Stay tuned to A News for more updates.